Hey, what's up to YouTube? This is Chris, and this is my channel, Bar911970. Thank you, as always, for checking out my video, and I hope you guys enjoyed your weekend. And as you can see by the title of this video, we're going to put a little common sense into the fear porn that so many people just love to follow and really have fear dictate how they live their lives. So if you're watching people like Alex Jones and other places where they're trying to scare you into the living death, thinking that eventually that the people, that the powers that be are going to come and destroy 80–90% of the planet, you know, they bring up things like the Georgia Guidestones and just all this fear porn. Now, this is what I want. I want some common sense here. Who do you think runs this planet, runs the world? Do you think it's the governments? No, they're pretty much just puppets. It's definitely not the police. They're just the enforcers. You could say corporations are part of it. You could say banks are a bigger part of it. You could say Vatican is one of the biggest parts of it. Now, if you know anything about these people, they are very greedy and they profit off the masses of the people. And they also have the masses of the people doing all the labor so they don't have to. So if you think of it from a common sense point of view, because people say things like, oh, the Georgia Guidestones say like 70% or 80% of the population would have to be eliminated. Well, just imagine if you are an oil company or you are a distributor of food. Just imagine if all of a sudden 80% of your sales just disappeared. Do you think that's really what they want? Think about how banks run. Banks create a Ponzi scheme based on the amount of people who create debt by borrowing money. So they can create more money, charge more interest, and have people basically have them live the life of luxury. So just imagine if 80% of the population all of a sudden just disappeared. Now think about the labor force. All of the people that are doing the manual jobs, all the jobs that these elitist people would never want to touch in the light of day. Just imagine if all of a sudden 80% of the population just disappeared off the face of the earth. Now, that's not assuming that there's some major catastrophe that we can't control. You know, like if there's some meteor, or if there's some earthquake or some kind of natural disaster, that's one thing. But if you think, first of all, if there was some kind of nuclear war, I mean, first of all, it's going to irradiate the atmosphere. It's going to destroy half the forest, which is going to deplete the oxygen. It's going to damage the water supply. And the world is going to be uninhabitable. So if you want to live the next couple of centuries underground, yeah, that's one way you could live, but that's not exactly thriving. It's going to be a lot harder to be able to create food underground. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm saying it's going to be more difficult. So if you think of it from the elitist point of view, do you think it is beneficial for them to eliminate major amounts of population? Now, of course, you know, a couple of 100,000 here and there, that doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things when you're talking almost 8 billion people on the planet. But if you're talking about 40, 50, 60, 70, 80% of the population, that is nothing more than fear porn to keep you spending your money on things like food that'll last for 60 years that cost you $200. Instead of buying just an individual can of something that'll last for probably the same time, if not more, that'll probably cost you $2. So I try and have people think in a more common sense point of view, looking at it from another perspective. Because like I said, just imagine if you own the biggest farm in the world, and let's say your farm sells food to 50% of the planet. And then all of a sudden, 80% of the population disappeared. Do you think you're going to make any more profits like you used to? You think the banks, the oil companies, these major corporations that steal off the wealth of the people, do you think the governments are going to love the fact that all of a sudden 80% of the labor is now gone? Excuse me, I don't edit. I like to keep it real. So my point is, if you want to choose to live in fear and think every other day some evil thing is going to come around and wipe out the planet, you know, like this new Ebola thing, even though it's been around since 1976, and it's not even an airborne disease, which I love the fact that some people say, oh, because I'm not a doctor, I can't know about viruses. So I guess you can't study these things. And people were mocking me that I had said that I had a semester, which is 4 months of training, on how viruses work. I would love to know how much training they had. So if you actually look up a medical book and research viruses, things like Ebola, you have to. The only way you can catch it is, for example, if you're on a plane and somebody with Ebola decides to spit in your mouth, or sneeze in your eye, or spill blood in an open wound, or you decide to have sex with the person, or while the person's passing out and he's throwing up all over the place, you decide, I'm going to go swimming in his vomit. Well, you're not going to catch anything. Just like if you have a person that's HIV positive, you can go right up to him and give him a big hug hello, because you're not going to catch anything. But they want you in fear. So if you want to think these new epidemics are going to come, destroy the world, and that's part of their plan to destroy 80% of the population, you know, it's just crazy, because if you look at it from the standpoint of the people who would have the most to lose, they will never do it. But they'll scare the living death out of you, because they can use that for endless amounts of time, that some kind of evil destruction is going to come along and murder the population. But if you are one of the banks, the last thing you want is 80% of your customers to just disappear. And if you are one of the elitists who don't want to do any work, the last thing you want is 80% of your labor force around the world to just disappear. But, you know, it's a choice to think any way you want. You want to be afraid all the time? Go with it. But don't be surprised if you have an ulcer before you ever hit the age of 40. So thanks for watching, guys. If you appreciate my point of view, give it a thumbs up, because it really does help. Share it and favorite, and post it on your social networks. And if this is your first time on Barnon 11970 channel, please hit subscribe button somewhere in the bottom. And thanks for watching. Peace.